everybody to this meeting of the Employment Committee. A quick reminder that the meeting is recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Are there any apologies or anybody joining online?
None received, Chair, and I can't see anyone joining remotely either.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest against agenda item 2? Agenda item 3, are there any matters arising from the minutes of the 1st of February 2025 or the 14th of May 2025? Any matters arising or points of accuracy on those? No? Okay, so can I have a seconder to pass the minutes, please?
Councillor Gilby, I'm happy to second.
And a show of hands for those in support. Thank you.
Chair.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just make a comment on the minutes from the pay award update that I provided at the meeting in February? There has been some progress for the pay award for this year, and to remind committee, it's a pay award which is due on the 1st of April. You'll recall that at that stage we were in the position where the trade unions had made their pay claim, which was a £3,000 increase across all spinal column points. At that stage, the national employers had not responded, but they have done subsequently with a pay offer of 3.2%, clearly away from the trade union claim. What has happened subsequently is that the trade unions have balloted their membership whether to accept or reject the national employer's offer. Just this last week or so, 2 of the 3 trade unions have come back to confirm their membership have rejected that pay offer. We're still waiting to see the position of Unison. The GMB in rejecting have demanded that they have further discussions with the national employers at this stage. So at this stage, it's difficult to know how it is going to proceed. Hopefully there'll be more negotiations going forward rather than just automatically the unions going through and balloting their membership for strike actions. So I will keep the committee up to date how this progresses, but it isn't going to be a speedy resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Just as a query on that, do we know how much our finance team put into the budget for this year in terms of increase? Because 3.2 probably seems quite high compared to what we would normally put in.
Yeah, that's correct. I think the budgeted amount was for, I think it was 3%, but I will clarify that. But it is more than what we budgeted for. But we have got the backup to actually anything over and above that 3%. We will be able to afford it within the council coffers.
Thank you. We'll note those for the minutes and wait an update. Thank you. Urgent items of business. I've not been notified of any. Don't expect there are any. Item number 5, update from the chair of the local joint committee. That's me. We had a meeting this afternoon. We covered off what Paul just updated us on, but other than that, there were no issues raised at the local joint committee from the trade unions. Item number 6, minutes of the subgroup of the local joint committee. This is just for the committee to note. We won't vote on it, so that's that. And now we move on to the welcome Councillor McLean. Main items of business. Item number 7, the employer supported volunteering programme benefit. Paul Young is going to present the report to members. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Can I pass you over to Alison, who's going to present this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So the employer supported volunteering benefit is a new benefit that we are proposing is implemented for our staff. The proposal is that all staff are eligible to undertake 1 day or part-time equivalent of paid volunteering per financial year. The employee supported volunteering schemes are renowned for having a positive impact on local communities. It will also align with the council plan objectives to support community volunteering. And there are numerous benefits to employees, the employer and the community. Just to summarise a few of them. When looking at benefits to employer, it builds goodwill in the local community, and also with non-profit organisations. It demonstrates the council's commitment to social responsibility. Also is expected to have a positive impact on retention and recruitment of our staff, because employees are able to build connections with their local communities, and by volunteering are able to give back to society, which is likely to reduce stress and boost mood. And there's also benefits to the local community in terms of increasing connection with the council and how they view the council. And a likely benefit as well is that when employees undertake volunteering under this scheme, that they may then want to undertake more volunteering activities for those organisations in their own free time. So just wanted to put that to the committee for their approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Fully support this initiative. I think as councillors we see the huge amount of volunteering that goes on in our communities. We probably get a perspective on that other people might not. So fully supported from me. Does anybody have anything to add to this? That's Alan.
Just like to say that my current employer also does this, has volunteers, volunteering for various things, and it can work in various ways. It can either be that you volunteer on, something which is local to you, or the employer also organises various days where people can volunteer and step up for things. And I also do that from the charity's point of view, because one of the organisations I work for voluntarily does do corporate days, and they do I think 2 or 3 corporate days a month, and they get various local employers again to supply 10 or 15 people for a session to do some work for the groups, which so I actually get to see this on both sides. It's very useful.
Actually, I do have a question. I might need to remind myself from the papers. I mean, some volunteering jobs are in the evening. How would that work out if you're sort of allocating days, but then there are opportunities? I'm thinking especially of the cadets in Bracknell, who certainly need adult volunteers.
I mean, obviously, majority of our staff work during the day, so we could look at how we could facilitate that, whether they started later and then worked into the evening, if that was volunteering they wanted to undertake. So within the bounds of that one day at the moment. So we are looking to work with our community engagement team as well to identify or help support people identify volunteering activity.
That's McLean.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions. The first is, are we actually going to monitor the activities of members of staff, not in a Big Brother way, but from the point of view of being able to publish details of what we could term a social dividend for the borough of the activities undertaken by council employees? The second question is, following on from Councillor Allen's point, yes, clearly we're going to need to signpost this within the organisation, but developing a theme, is there an opportunity for us to demonstrate to local employers and local charitable organisations and non-profit organisations that we have this scheme, and therefore it's possible to construct a framework which will encourage participation in it of the council's employees, to the benefit of the organisations themselves, but also our staff and our residents?
Yeah, we do intend to monitor. The one of the premises of the plan of the scheme is that the volunteering will be to the benefit of the borough. We can record volunteering days on our iWork system, so we can monitor that. We will have good, strong comms going out, and we will engage with DMTs on what good volunteering looks like. And as I said, we will liaise with our colleagues in community engagement so that the volunteering is of value to the community and to the council.
Councillor Kilby.
Thank you, Chair. What I liked about this report is it's clear that we don't see this as simply a tick against our name. It's actually something where we recognise the worth that this has in building up employee relationships. Further to that, can you talk a little bit about how we're going to encourage awareness, not just now when presumably we sign off on this recommendation, but how we encourage awareness in the months and years to come? Because as you know, awareness on one occasion can sometimes be not fully appreciated or forgotten. It's about keeping that culture of awareness going into the future.
Yes, I can. Every new starter has an induction checklist, so we will make sure it's on there. So on day one, there will be almost a reminder, because we will use it in our recruitment campaigns. I see it as a real positive benefit for recruiting staff. So that will be one element that we'll do it and ensure it's included in our candidate packs as one of our key benefits. Looking forwards, we will publish, we always publish our benefits in Forest Views on a regular basis. So we will ensure that that's factored in so that it's at least an annual reminder of the scheme. But we will have a good solid comms plan, which will go out when the scheme's launched.
But presumably, if organisations come to the council and say, can you supply volunteers for an event, then you'll be doing a company-wide blast on a regular basis anyway. So for each of those events, you'll be sending it out to all employees, presumably.
Yeah, that's correct. We're recognising this is a new scheme. There's going to be aspects of it we're going to have to learn as we're progressing on this, but I think we're open to ideas, and with the community strategy as well, there'll be the opportunity to engage with certainly the voluntary sector organisations to see what we can do in support of this. I think I think the committee will be aware that there is a weekly email that goes out from the chief executive or on behalf of the chief executive. What we will also do is add the details on there. And I think once we've actually had a number of individuals that have gone through this scheme and supported various groups, we'll do some articles in the Forest Views as well, what the learning was, what the enjoyment was, and what the benefits of the scheme are. So it'd be something which should be a sort of consistent theme of the communications moving forward.
Just as observation, taking Councillor Gilby's point, if you really want to embed this in the culture of the organisation, I think you have to lead by example. And I would like to think that senior officers would demonstrate and report back to members of staff on the work that they feel that they can do within this new scheme to demonstrate its worth and its value.
Yeah, and I think also in terms there'll be a number of senior officers that already do a number of volunteer activities, and it may be something which actually makes this more prevalent and gives people the opportunity to have a voice and to share some of those activities. I think we've heard even the committee tonight about some of those activities that councillors are getting involved in. There will be some similar examples that we've got across our workforce. So it's something which would probably add to the community strategy that we're looking investing.
Thank you very much. Unless there's any more, I think we can move this recommendation. Would somebody like to move this recommendation? Otherwise, I will. Very happy to. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I won't speak, but do you have anything you want to add at this point?
I would just like to endorse the policy as a very good way forward. Thank you.
Would any other member like to speak? Oh, Councillor Kilby.
Chair, you must know I've always got something to say on every issue. I won't go into great reasons why I would support the recommendation beyond what I've just said previously, except to say that I think the key line used in the report, which I think sums up the worth of this scheme, is it demonstrates a commitment to making a difference to our communities and makes employees feel more connected to an organisation which supports their values. One likes to imagine that people would feel that way, they'd feel connected to their work in the community by working for such an organisation anyway, but anything we can do to further that, I think, is very positive. I would use this as a chance to say that obviously this scheme is in its infancy, and one thing I would urge the team to explore as it matures over the months and years to come is obviously at 1 day a year, we acknowledge that that is at the low end of what councils tend to offer in this area. Typically, they tend to offer 2 days, and I would simply use this opportunity to urge that one aspect that is reviewed as time goes on is the number of days that are offered as part of the scheme. Thank you.
Yeah, that's noted. Thank you.
Right, shall we take a vote on this? So this is the recommendations 2.1, the employer supported volunteering programme benefit. Please raise your hand if you support it. Thank you.
That's unanimous.
So item number 8, the retention and recruitment project, and we're going to get the year 1 review of 2024 and 2025 and some good news, I think. Paul, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The committee will be aware of some of the challenges that we've faced over the years recruiting and retaining certain professions across our workforce. That's one of the reasons why we were successful in the bid for one of the business change programs to be concentrating on the retention and recruitment activities across the council. The report gives the details in terms of the objectives of that, but what we have had is 3 work streams across the retention and recruitment activities, which has been, first of all, concentrating on academy model, which is looking at developing more secure career pathways for a number of the posts across the organisation that are typically difficult to recruit, such as posts within finance, social care, and various other roles across the council. So we've developed some of those with some great success and have more apprenticeship roles implemented in some of those. And at one stage we had for the first time and I think from the manager's perspective, a full input of occupational therapists across the council, which was extremely rare. It unfortunately hasn't lasted because one's moved on, but we're in a much better position there. But even with some of the roles within legal and the approved mental health practitioner trainees, that we've actually got more secure career pathways across that academy model work stream. The second work stream has been concentrating on leadership and management development. It's the focusing on further embedding some of the council values and behaviours, and also the core skills that we're expecting our managers to enable them to manage effectively, and particularly having a strong focus on financial competency, expertise on procurement, and also critically in terms of what lies ahead, developing our managers to be more secure in managing change and change management. So there's been a lot of activity on that, and that's going to be further developed of year 2 of the programme. The third work stream is increasing permanency, and out of all of them, this is probably the easiest one to define some form of success. We did actually have a £1 million saving on agency workers that we put in for the year 1 of the programme. And as you'll see for the report, we surpassed that by some distance with a rounded up 2.8 million reduction in costs for agency workers. it's sensible to be saying that we will always need agency workers for a number of the roles across the organisation, but primarily the programme has been focused on developing a more stable permanent workforce. And so there's been a number of activities that have been implemented to enable that. And you'll note from 5.8 on the report, then at the beginning of the year, we had 96 workers engaged as agency workers, and that reduced to 57 as of March 2025. And with that reduction of 2.8 million in agency costs, that actually represents an actual real term saving about £440,000. So that there's been a lot of work activity that has been put in terms of working with our managers. And this has been a council-wide project. It hasn't just been concentrating on HR. So we've had some really good working across the council. We've had 13 agency staff that have transferred from agency workers to permanency in year one of the programme, and that's a consistent theme that we're looking to continue to implement to get as much as the permanent workforce as we can do so. The other aspect of this is looking at the role of the single agency vendor. It's important to be using this single agency vendor in that we have the opportunity to engage any agency worker that's been on that framework for 13 weeks. We have the opportunity to offer permanent work without any additional costs. So it's important for our managers to engage with that framework. And as you can see at 5.10 of the report, the on-contract spend has increased from 39% to 68%. And there's further work to do on that, but it is certainly a work in progress. Clearly, with what was a target of £1 million reduction in spend on year one and surpassing it as much as we have revised the years 2 and 3 of the programme to ensure that we are looking at ambitious targets to continue that reduction in agency spend. And just for the committee, you'll be aware of all of the challenges that we've had over the years to do with the agency figures and the increase in agency spend across this council, which is no different from any other local authority in the local area, and some of the challenges on that. So I hope you can note the sort of really positive impact of a lot of the work activity we've been doing on this and the positive financial outcome at the end of year one of the programme. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Yeah, that's noted, and certainly some really encouraging movement there. I know Councillor Gilby has some questions because I've seen them. So I'll go to you first, and then we'll go around the room.
Thank you, Chair. Have any teams flagged increased pressure or risk as a result of fewer agency workers?
Yeah, it's fair to say that there is more of a challenge on our managers, and there will be situations where managers would want to directly engage an agency worker before they're able to. We have got procedures in place now where for each recruitment, either permanent recruitment to the workforce or for an agency worker, there is a process that the individual manager has to put a report into their individual DMTs, and then that gets approval at the corporate management team. So that in itself can create a delay. One of the outcomes of this is actually been more effective workforce planning. So where we've got individual managers knowing individuals are in the process of thinking of leaving the organisation, we have seen more effective workforce planning to identify what are the needs of the service. And it isn't always the case that you replace the individual leaving with the same individual, the same post moving forward. So we've seen some outcomes such as that. But I think it's fair to say that in certain areas, there has been more of a challenge in the services because this has created a delay in the ability to go through the agency route. But those risks are assessed at each individual departmental management team. So if there was anything which was going to be a significant service risk, they can be prioritised and moved forward. So I'm not saying it's been easy, because it hasn't, but I think from an organisational perspective, it has been effective, because it's something which has actually focused the mind in terms of the workforce planning aspects of it. But clearly, where there is a real risk to the service offer, then the processes can be sped up. But that risk is actually managed between the manager and the departmental management teams.
That's Alan.
Obviously, we're taking, there's a number of instances where we've hired or we've taken agency staff onto our permanent staff. Now, I don't know if is there a premium? Do we pay a premium to the agency for doing that, or is it just they just get employed on, become a permanent worker at some point?
If they're on the single agency vendor, then if the individual's been here 13 weeks, there are no additional costs for the employer. If they are engaged via another agency outside that vendor, then there is the potential for having a cost, typically between sort of 5 and 15% of the salary. We try to avoid that clearly where we can. What the single agency vendor is there to do is to try and get all of our agencies to be working through that route. So we're not in a position where we have to pay agencies for that introduction fee.
So just on that point, so presumably where we, if it is an outsider, the non-single vendor agency, and we are paying a premium, is that then offset against the fact that we haven't had to pay recruitment costs? We haven't advertised for the role or whatever because we found the person we want?
Potentially, although typically in those situations we would have advertised anyway, but those advertising costs may well have actually just gone through our internet, so there's no direct associated costs with media. So there may well be just those normal internal recruitment costs, but there will be certain situations where we haven't got much of an option apart from actually paying that introductory fee. But the work the team are doing is to try and get everybody onto the neutral agency vendor anyway. So if we get them on there, then we've still got the same system in place for all of our agency staff.
You've obviously had great success in year one. I'm guessing, might be wrong, that you didn't set the target in terms of that £1 million target. Is that going to be sort of adjusted to be a more realistic target?
Yes. It is, yeah. We're aiming just to sustain the 2.8. We've actually got a target of having the 3 million reduction from the previous. So, yeah, it is quite a challenge. And I think what we're facing at the moment is in certain positions across the council and certain areas of work, we are still really struggling with our recruitment activity, just because there aren't the individuals out there. So we are trying to be quite inventive, and particularly the work stream to be looking at career pathways of developing our own and retaining them, because that is clearly quite a concern as well.
When you say the individuals aren't out there, what do you mean?
There just isn't the market locally. That we're in a pool. I'll give you an example of children's social workers. They're in demand, children's social workers. Each local authority are paying quite heavy costs for agencies. So there are a number that are engaged as agency workers because they get more flexibility in terms of where they work, and they haven't got the same deadlines in terms of resigning and moving on from one another. They want the more flexible working. So because there isn't the local market for these social workers, they can pick and choose where they go. So we are going to be in a position where we need to be more inventive in terms of some of these roles, and some of the examples that we've given in terms of the mental health practitioners, for example. There isn't a number of people out there that have got the qualifications on this. So we've designed an apprenticeship and a traineeship to actually develop our own into those positions.
That's McLean.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, this has been a perennial problem for us, given that there are 5 other unitary authorities in Berkshire, let alone the counties, and London, which means that anybody who lives around this area can find employment, whether it's in social care or anything else, relatively easily. And there was a period, and I'm not sure if it's still true, that there was a certain degree of competition between local employers to recruit those sorts of people. So that's something that continues to be a problem for us. I just wondered whether there were any particularly good areas. I mean, this is all very positive. Are there any particularly good areas of good practice in the council? And are there any areas where perhaps we need to look at some remedial work to try and improve the circumstances? I just wonder if there are any particular outliers in the council where recruitment retains a problem, or particular success stories.
Yes to both. I don't think there's a lack of engagement across the organisation, and people are willing to be trialling different areas. We've moved away from the mindset of actually everyone's gonna, if anyone's moving on, they're going to get a like for like replacement, because sometimes you do need to do things differently. And then it's the planning department, isn't it, where we've actually had particular success, where we've brought people in through apprenticeship programs and trainee programs to develop them into their roles. So we've got some really good examples there. We're trialing all the time different methods, and as you rightly say, this is perennial. It is a challenge. We have got the other Berkshire authorities and other big county authorities on our doorstep, so the competition is fierce, but it isn't always a case of just readjusting the employee benefits or the total reward package to be inventive. We are looking. The leadership and management development is aligned also to the learning and development program that we offer for our staff, and that's one area that we actually want to be on the front foot. You come to Bracknell Forest, you will be developed, you will get support in your development, and that's where we want to actually sort of building that sort of culture rather than just looking at the total reward package. So that's a culture that we want to re-establish here in Bracknell Forest.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Fantastic. Well, thank you, Paul, for that encouraging news, and look forward to hearing more next year. Item 9, the HR policy.
Just a note.
Yes. Review. So, Paul, over to you again for the HR policy review.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass you over to Alison again for the HR policies.
Thank you, Paul. So we're bringing to you today 4 policies which the HR team have revised. This is part of our biannual review of policies that we undertake. So these are all policies that have been reviewed. There's no new policies this time. We are constantly improving the process. The route that we take through when we create a policy is that they go to DMT's feedback. We also engage with our union colleagues and our colleagues in the equality team as well. The improvements we've made across these policies this time, which we will replicate going forward, are including a section about where to access support and, where relevant, e-learning that's available to staff. The first policy that I'm going to look at is domestic abuse policy. When we reviewed this policy, we engaged with our domestic abuse strategic lead and the head of community safety for their input into the policy, which it was really valuable. We've also included links on there to external support that's available. The parental bereavement leave has additional information on how parental bereavement leave interacts with other policies. And again, the inclusion of links to external support groups. The violence and abuse at work policy, again, we engaged with our colleagues, our experts internally on this policy, and we've included guidance to support teams as a result of that on receiving abusive phone calls, and the requirement to undertake the same level of risk assessment when meeting people in council buildings as when visiting people other venues such as their homes. And we've also included a section on public auditing because this has become more prevalent in the local area. So we wanted to make sure there was guidance for staff on how to deal with that. And then the last policy that we're bringing today is the substance misuse policy. Again, we liaise with our colleagues in the drugs and alcohol team, and as a result of that, we've included within the policy a pathway for any staff who need those services, which is dedicated to them. Also, some additional guidance for managers on how to both identify employees and team members who may be suffering from substance misuse, and how to deal with that in a compassionate way. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are any on these policies.
Any questions? No. Okay. So I am happy to move the recommendations 2.1 on page 21 of the agenda. Can I have a second of that, please?
Councillor Gilby, I second.
Thank you very much. I don't have anything to add to that. Would you like to say anything, Councillor Gilby?
For once, nothing to add for myself either.
Would anybody else like to speak? Not, we will take a vote. Please show your support. Yes.
Yes, that's unanimous.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our committee meeting. Thank you very much, Alison and Paul, for your extensive contributions, all the good work you're doing, and to members for attending. So I declare the meeting closed.